And if we ask the stars what they mean, what would they say back to us? Welcome! You want to go on a card journey today? Give me some of your time, and I'll give you some of your story. Well, let's see what the cards say. Hey there, card readers! Welcome to Koi Plays Tarot. My name is Koi, and instead of a card read today, we're going to do something a little bit different. This is a video from the series on my channel called Learn With Me, a series where we look at all 78 cards in the tarot card deck, both major and minor arcana, and see what is going on with their elements and their stories. So before we get started, quick reminder, please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, hit the notification button. That way when uploads are made, you can see what the stars are trying to say to you. And also, if interested, individual reads are back up and open. Yes, it's been a while since I uploaded. Life has been lifing lately. But if you do want a one-on-one read, I'm more than happy to set that up with you, right? Now, when it comes to this set of videos, it's about exploring what the cards actually mean and how we apply them in context. As I said before, and I'll say it again in almost every one of the videos, tarot cards are spiritual tools, right? And every one of these cards have a story with it, alongside that element and alignment, all that good stuff. And they spell out bits and pieces of your story, or whoever's getting that reading in that moment, because they can only pick up what you're putting down, and therefore your story is the energy that's being emitted right now. Right? In this set, we did, I think, the sixes, the Wheel of Fortune, and Justice last time. If I get it right, I gotta go look at my notes. And now we are going to be doing the sevens, and I like the sevens a lot. And also the Hangman and Death. I always gotta give some preambles before that because this card in particular gets such a bad rap. It's also the card of Scorpio. I'm not trying to say the Scorpios are bad by any means, but it has a different connotation rather than the rep that has gotten, particularly because of horror media and literature in the past 100+ years. You'll understand why when we get to it. So as per usual, we're going to go through the minor arcana, the major arcana, see what they're about, flip them around, reverse it, see what that's about, and just talk about the general theme, right? So going back to what's going on over here with the sevens represent possibility. Either how we feel about the idea of hope, the things that we're guarded from when it comes to a decision, the processes, the everyday things that it takes to get there, or the notion that we're backpedaling on our own words, right? They all go kind of hand in hand. And as opposed to their five counterparts that just represent pure conflict, this time, possibility, there's the both ands, right? All things are up in the air at once. And that's very prevalent with the first card that we're going to examine, which is the Seven of Cups. Sevens here, again, remember, if it's been a while since you've seen my videos, water represents emotionality, right? To have so many cups, if we remember last time, the Six of Cups was something that was uniquely shared, uniquely bonded between yourself and another person. The Seven of Cups, everything's on the table, right? There's so much possibility that you see for and within yourself, but also in the world around you. It's about actually deciding on that path, right? The thing that gets a lot of people caught up with the Seven of Cups is that we get entertained by so much possibility that it actually renders us inert and immobile, right? And because of that, we don't make a choice when the only way to enact certain paths is to make a choice. And in knowing that, and this is, the catch-22 of the Seven of Cups. One door, if one door closes, another one opens. But if you go on one path, the other paths kind of fall away, right? So if we get too stuck in the idea of entertaining possibility and all the what ifs, and we don't make a choice, then everything gets taken away from us, right? Do not sit with the Seven of Cups for way too long. It has a purpose. It's supposed to show you different paths to take, not for you to just be stuck there viewing. Next, Seven of Pentacles. The element of earth. Pentacles represented by coins or raw materiality. If the Six of Pentacles was a long-term investment, and okay, just remind yourself, put a coin into your piggy bank or put $1 into a swear jar every time you say a bad word. The Seven of Pentacles is both the monotony, but also the expectation of this is what it takes to get there, therefore it is what it is. Right, that's the phrase I most tie to this one card in particular above all other cards in the deck. It is what it is. is almost synonymous with the Seven of Pentacles, because you have to ask yourself, what does it take to build a garden? Right now that we've done all the layout and we have put every other piece of investment into motion, now it's about actually building, growing, nurturing, maintaining it. You need gardening tools. You need your seeds. You need a fresh water supply resource. You need avid sunlight, continuously ideal conditions. You need a protection barrier around your investment, or a small fence from the little forest critters that like to get in and eat the carrots. You need fertilizer. You need all these different stuff, all these different things, all this different stuff to help build and maintain what you set yourself out to do and accomplish. Therefore, the Seven of Pentacles, hey, it's very truthful. It just, yeah, there's no going around it. There's no, maybe we could take a shortcut. No, it is what it is. And when the Seven of Pentacles oftentimes come up in reads, it's meant to signify, hey, we looked at this from multiple angles and here's where we are. And especially when we get to the Hangman counterpart up above, but that has a different connotation because it's more from individual perspective rather than just the totality of a situation. Just remember, Seven of Pentacles, it is what it is. Seven of Wands. As you can see, wands representing the element of fire. Here, the Seven of Wands, somebody who is guarded or somebody who is taking defensive posturing, i.e., I recognize the situation, the fire got a little bit heavy, now I'm guarding myself, right? I'm in a defensive stance. If you're looking at me right now on camera, I'm kind of doing a shell pose, a defensive boxer stance, right? The Seven of Wands represents, okay, there was something about the situation that makes me feel uneasy, or that I have to defend myself, or I'm not ready to accept what has been shown to me just yet. Right. That doesn't mean that we're lying to ourselves. It means actually we are very much in the moment, and that's why we have our guard up. Right. We're not going to allow that to get to us. We're not going to allow that to affect us. The thing is that your comfort zone, or is that a deal breaker? Right. If it's our comfort zone, then we have to ask, okay, what makes us comfortable out of the situation? What are we trying to protect? Right. Because some things, truth doesn't always have to be nice or pretty. It just has to be there, right? And if we have the Seven of Wands up too high, then our protector has now become our prison warden, right? It keeps us locked in place. But if it is for good reason, then how do we conserve that in a manner that isn't reckless, right? So let's say hypothetically, you put your heart and soul into an art piece, and you valued another person's critique and input, and you ask, your friends and very close confidants about it, and they say things that you may not have liked about it. Okay, yeah, I'm a little bit defensive, I'm sensitive about my stuff, right? But at the same exact time, why am I guarding it? Is it because their critique is not valid because I asked for it? But at the same exact time, hey, here's the purpose behind it, right? Seven of Wands, why are we guarding? Lastly, Seven of Swords. And yep, as I predicted, Seven of Swords is almost always represented by a thief in the night. Somebody who is taking the armaments of another party and basically hoarding them and stealing them for themselves. The Seven of Swords represents all actions are not as they appear on the surface, right? This is a card very closely linked with either deceptive activity or moving off of false pretense. But the notion of the Seven of Swords, what you see is not the whole picture, right? And keep that in mind, because oftentimes when the Seven of Swords comes up, it's like, okay, almost immediately the perception of pure lies starts coming out. And that's not necessarily the intention, although that's oftentimes what goes along with it. Sometimes lies come from well-meaningful yet misplaced intention, right? I meant to do the right thing, but I was not told everything about the story, and therefore I was only acting off of the best case scenario that I could have had, right? Sometimes that's a situation that gets created and creates rifts and groups. Other times, yeah, it's a blatant lie, and we need to acknowledge that no matter how we want to angle it, slice it, dice it, or look at it, it still comes out to the same point of there was a misnomer or a purposeful fudging of the information that created this entire, problem that's about to ensue. So that's essentially the sevens in a nutshell. What is possibility? What does it mean to hold that within yourself and examine it in the world around you? Going to the major arcana, we have the Hangman and Death. Let's start over here. So interestingly enough, the Hangman is not somebody who is, for all intents and purposes, decided to do a form of self-harm, let's say. The Hangman is a person who intentionally climbed a tree and hung upside down from their foot. And the reason being is because no matter how hard they looked at a situation, they only could rely on gravity, right? So in order to change their perspective, they climbed a tree and inverted their gaze in a 180-degree look, right? They literally inverted their viewpoint. So they wanted to see the world upside down, and maybe it could change their perspective on something that they looked at forever and then they get a different answer to. The Hangman is observation with intention, right? If it has no intention, it is not the Hangman, right? There always has to be some purpose behind why we're observing or why we're saying, let me get a closer look at this, right? If there is no purpose, it is not the Hangman. So the Hangman here, what is the purpose beyond, me suspending disbelief in spite of everything that's been presented to me, right? If somebody's trying to rush me to a conclusion, hold on. I know this is the obvious answer. What is the deeper thing going on here, right? The Hangman asks a different and tougher question because it asks us, what have we missed out on, right? It always has intention. Otherwise, if you're just observing and you're still getting nothing out of it, try the Page of Swords, right? The Hangman always has a purpose because eventually he wants to get off the tree. Remember, he climbed the tree with a purpose. He will eventually depart from it all the same. Now, going to Death, the strongest representation of Scorpio. This is one of the big three cards. The other two being the Tower and the Devil, the card of Capricorn. We'll get into those in a later video series. The Death here, it represents transformation. Pure and simple, let's make it easy. However, because of horror media in particular, it has gotten such a negative connotation. Like the moment you draw this card, boom, somebody in the movie literally dies. That's not what this is supposed to represent. Death in this case means transformation. It means a cycle acknowledged must come to an end, right? The number of reasons why we can, list them off as we go, but we've established, we looked at this, we've come to, if A plus B equals C, then let's call it a spade a spade. Let's get to a conclusion. Death here then meaning, okay, maybe putting an end to something isn't necessarily bad. Maybe this is what's necessary for transformation, because otherwise, and we're going to get into its reverse in a minute, we're keeping something past its expiration date. And then that's even worse because we're just afraid to face the truth rather than saying the truth will set us free. So Death here, always think the word transformation, not just terrible endings. Not all forms of death is bad, right? If we're talking about the death of a bad habit, the death of hopelessness, the death of procrastination, the death of different forms of engagement, then that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just something that took a while to get to. Okay, let's turn them around. Now, looking at everything in the reverse. Oh, this is where it gets fun. So if possibility was a primary theme of the major arcana before, then this is what happens when things go off the rails. Let's look at the Seven of Cups in the reverse. So all the cups tipped over, spilled. What happens when there's no possibility left? It either fell out the sky or we waited too long, right? The Seven of Cups is just supposed to present possibility. It's not supposed to be stared at infinitely, right? So when we have the Seven of Cups in the reverse, it took too long, buddy, right? There's something about it that just says, no matter how we dice or roll it, it's not in the cards anymore. Or this opportunity is locked out for a long time right now. Can it eventually, turn right back up? Sure, but the most important meaning of it when it flips upside down is that all the possibility that you once saw, you got too comfortable with entertaining its notion rather than its reality. And that's why we're here. Seven of Pentacles in the reverse, not necessarily a bad thing. Remember, if Seven of Pentacles says it is what it is what it takes to get the garden, then eventually it is what it is when we harvest, right? It's not necessarily bad because it's one of the slowest cards in the deck, right? Everything that it takes to grow that garden, but it's not meant to also grow forever, right? There has to be some season of harvest, and it will come after all that blood, sweat, and toil meant to build everything that we wanted to ferment here. The Seven of Pentacles in reverse says, and finally, it's time to reap what you have sown, and not necessarily in a bad way. Let us harvest the fruits of our labor. It's a good thing sometimes to say, I've waited long enough, let's do it. Seven of Wands in the reverse. If the Seven of Wands upright represented being guarded and defensive, the Seven of Wands in the reverse says, okay, I'm still, a very, trained adept, a very trained fighter. I'm going to slowly let my guard down. Let's put our weapons to the side, but not out of reach, right? So the Seven of Wands in reverse, I'm intentionally trying to lower my guard and hear you out, right? This is from before of the Seven of Wands upright. We ain't hearing nothing. We ain't moving. Like, it's not changing. In the reverse, I'll hear you out. I still don't trust you. There's still something about this that smells fishy, but okay, I'm not going to hit you. If you don't swing, I won't swing back. We can at least come to that agreement right now. The Seven of Swords in the reverse, if it once represented deceptive behavior in the upright, in the reverse, all things come out in the wash, right? The Seven of Swords in the reverse, all truths made apparent, abundant, and clear. Everything is now revealed, right? If the Seven of Swords upright represented, deceptive behavior or the idea that, hey, this isn't enough, no, the Seven of Swords in reverse, everything will come out, good, bad, or otherwise. It's going to be a storm. Here, you're going to learn everything. We're going to spill all the tea, as they say. We're going to tell all, we're going to find out all, and whatever we don't have an answer to, it's going to be dead obvious by the time we get done with it. And hey, at least it's better than lying. Even if, if the lie hurt, then imagine what the truth can do. Now there's just perspective, right? Now let's talk about the Hangman in the reverse. Why did I grab it that way? The Hangman in the reverse. I'm like, yeah, I need to be able to flip according to where you see, not necessarily where I see. It's late here, sorry. The Hangman in the reverse. So the Hangman still climbed the tree, still tried to have intentional observation for a different path, right? And he stayed there a few minutes, an hour, a whole afternoon. It's night now. I thought I was supposed to get a different perspective. Yeah, it didn't happen. The Hangman in the reverse represents, I climbed the tree. I looked at everything in a 180-degree viewpoint, and a rock is still a rock. My perspective hasn't changed. My feelings about it haven't changed. My thought patterns around it haven't changed. Nothing has changed. Now, it doesn't mean that observation was for no apparent reason. In fact, the Hangman in the reverse, it's kind of, people will say sometimes the obvious answer is the one that you get first. Hey, you went through all the efforts of being fair and optimistic, but the conclusion that you came to was the exact thing that you thought from the first time. They was lying. Good. I did all the leaps and bounds to try to disprove this theory. We still ended up back here. Hangman in reverse. I did the fair and equitable thing to try to get all observations and opinions out the way. That way we can, try to judge this in a fair manner. Still came to the same conclusion. I'm getting off this tree. This was pointless, right? The rock is still a rock. Your opinion has not changed. Your disposition has not faltered. And Death in the reverse. Hey. If Death upright represent, again, transformation by a 4 cycles closing, Death in the reverse, it means necromancy. And necromancy in the way of, we know we are keeping something way past its expiration date. We acknowledge this probably should have been over, but we still keep, quote unquote, beating the proverbial dead horse. It's not going anywhere. The situation is not changing. You acknowledge that you're mad about it, but you're not mad enough to do anything about it. The cycle has not ended, but it has not ended because, and this is the part where New Age therapy talk really doesn't like to, encounter some truths found in tarot. What part have we played in keeping it alive past this due date? Because not everything just happens to you. You're not a passive bystander in your own life a good 90% of the time. Some things are out of your control, but what part did we play in keeping it alive at that point? Because it isn't just that person, that situation that's keeping itself alive. What part did you partake in it to have you experience that, right? The death in the reverse asks a tough question because it's like, okay, death is a natural cycle of life, but necromancy requires a necromancer. What part did we play in overextending something that we know wasn't good for us, know was bad for us? That relationship that everybody said, yeah, you guys are on the tip of a collapse, and we didn't do the responsible thing and break up. Or that job that we never left because, oh, well, X, Y, and Z, blah, blah, blah. We've been through the cycle before. So why haven't we been brave enough to make that change? That thing that we should have started but never did because we're so comfortable in our shell that we cannot expand anymore. So we just say, it's not for me. Well, then don't complain about your circumstance, right? Remember, necromancy requires a necromancer, whereas the death upright, a cycle will eventually close. It has reached its logical conclusion or end. We have to put our stamp of approval on it before we move on. Here, we're keeping it alive and sometimes against its own will. And that's just the fair aspect of it. Sideways, just going through a quick recap. Again, all the sevens represent possibility. The Seven of Cups sideways, hey, this is possibility. Now, how do you feel about it? Seven of Pentacles sideways, here's your garden. What will you do to maintain it? The Seven of Wands sideways, here's your opinion. What will you do to fight for it? Seven of Swords sideways, here's lies, here's truth, and here's the shared experience. Do what you will with it, right? Every one of them represent a possibility worth defending, having an opinion about, or detracting yourself from, right? It all has to deal with possibility. For the Hangman sideways, yeah, if you take up the act of observation, what will be the intent behind it? You need to know your reason before you climb that tree. To Death sideways, if you're really willing to make it end, how can you make it end on the best note possible? Because it's still coming to its ending. So that's what I got for you in your, your session today. You're learning with me, my fellow card readers. All the sevens of every element, water, earth, fire, and air, representing that of possibility, impossibility, what we try to defend, what we try to invest ourselves into, and the Hangman and Death, each representing an aspect of ending or trying to see the greater, more grandiose purpose behind the cycle. I hope this session today helped. Again, it's been a while since I made one of these videos. I'm glad to get back on track, but even more so, I'm glad to share with you what eventually every one of these 78 cards mean, because it's not as difficult or out of touch, unreachable as it first appears to most people. In fact, just think of them as parts of a story, and we are just trying to read. Thank you for coming to the table today, card readers. I hope this conversation helped. And yeah, take all these tools, all these lessons, all these applications, and apply them in your own readings. Tell me how you feel about it in the comments, or see what you have learned or been feeling more enlightened about now having seen this video and learned more about the cards. I'll see you around, okay? Take care and keep on reading.